Okay, good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. Welcome to Seminar 2 for Scaling and Replicating Programs. So this is a seminar where we get to consider our design options for our organizations to make sure we have a smooth scaling journey. Welcome, everybody. Today, hopefully, how many folks got to watch the webinar that was posted? Has everybody seen it, or are we still to watch it? It's quite all right if you haven't watched it, but by a quick thumbs up, have we watched it already? That's good, lovely. There's a thumbs up. Top of the class, and if I'm brilliant. That's good. Deepak's watched it. That's good. And hopefully, Janae, sounds like you've watched it as well. So that's good. Okay, great. Celia, I know we've talked about some of the content already, so that's okay. That's good. So just to say that in this session, this is about, so some of those considerations around how we design our organizations, and then in the later stages of the seminars, we'll be talking more about the journey for growth and managing it. Anything that's coming up from you is also still valid to talk about. We can use this group. As we did last time, if people want to share an issue and get some group support on it, we can do a bit more interaction around what's going on for you as well. Okay, so some of the topics that were in the webinar and some of the ideas for tasks to have a crack at with your teams were around identifying your sort of customer mapping and your market segmentation. That was very much some of that content from Deepak, Village Capital, to have a look at, and linking that with your value proposition. That sort of stuff's very much what you'll be doing with your teams and with your cohorts and that kind of thing. And it was just applying it to your own organizations, making sure that we got that in the scaling webinars nice and clearly. Because then the second option for tasks was to look at what's in the box. So whether you're replicating, say, with a franchise or a licensing model, or whether you're doing expanding to another geographic location with a team and recruiting a network of people, some of the ingredients that you have to put into what I suppose the metaphorical box that you're opening up for that new team or for that new licensee, that's part of what helps keep them straight and delivering your model really well and efficiently. And also helps to make sure they value what it is they're part of and joining. And then the third option for things to apply with your team was looking at what we call the dimensions and the elements of replication. And those are the parts that can help you get around things like intellectual property, or that worry that people are going to be leaving you or stealing what you do. And so the dimensions is all about your model for replication. How much control have you got? How much finance are you putting in, or is somebody paying you money in those different areas? How much flexibility is there over your model, and how much, and is it exactly the same, or is it very different in an area? That kind of thing. And then elements was the open framework, which is around how much ownership does your new team or your new replication partner or that sort of thing feel for the solution that you're providing. Are they drawing on really well-honed processes that you can give them? Are they really understanding they're part of an enhanced network? And are they using your brand, your name, so OPEN? And that open framework is one of the tricks to how you get people to stay with you as you're growing a bigger and bigger organization. So those are the three kind of main areas that were on offer for this sort of webinar to have a go at and see if they are useful as part of your design and thinking. There was some other content around licensing and some terminology, and also there was a couple of slides around business models and using some of the kind of generic impact business models that we use with our cohorts as a little bounce for ourselves to think more broadly about how are we scaling, and is there something different that we could be doing. So again, that's another useful little design thing that you can do with your teams, just to sort of double check Are we missing anything here while we're still talking about design? So that's a quick summary of the webinar in 5 minutes. Is there anything from the watching the webinar or from that little intro or from what's going on for you guys at the minute that anybody would like to put on the table for discussion today that you'd like to talk about? Nothing at all. If we don't, then we can go around and we can see who's here and just a quick update on what's going on for you, and maybe some stuff will come up from that. Who would like to start? I can go clockwise around the screen. How about that? How about Mariska? Is that right? Would you like to go first? Tell us a little bit about what's going on for you guys right now.
Hi all. Well, actually, since I'm not like full-time in CIAP right now, but from what we've been doing so far, we are more we're still doing the DICE program, and we're kind of like, maybe you already knew as well. I think you knew it better, Mirza. We plan to replicate or scaling in terms of how we can give a consultancy around impact measurements, especially for the corporate. I think from what we will discuss today about the customer discovery and how to define the market, it will be essentials for CIAP as well, like which corporate that we need to tap in first, and which users or which divisions that we need to tap in. For example, if whether we need to tap into the CSR divisions, or maybe for maybe more into the corporate affairs, for example, like that, or which type of company or corporate that we need to tap in first. Like maybe it's more the big one like FMCG, or the local one that have more territory for making a decisions for what kind of impact that they want to create. So I think I think that's what are interesting for me to explore for today.
Excellent. So customer identification and working with those corporates as your potential customer, what you're saying. Nice. Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Right. That's definitely one then. Any advance on that? Anybody interested in the same topic or doing the same sort of thing? Or maybe you've done that before. Junaid, I know your startup space, aren't you, and general questions around this. Anything you want to add at this point in terms of topic?
So one of the things you talked about was the designing the program and the IP on that. So one of the, I think that's an area of curiosity for me, because there is so much overlapping content that is out there. How do you essentially, at what point do you call something IP worthy in a way, and how can you protect that, right? So when you talk about, like, let's say you talk about in discipline entrepreneurship, I just mentioned, a lot of it is coming based upon, lean startup and a lot of other methodologies. So at what point something becomes, IP worthy in a way, and also how can one go about protecting that, and even if it's something of a worth endeavor, because a lot of time IP becomes very challenging in a lot of environments. So is it something which one should really think of as the core element which you bring, or do you just let it be, and like, if anyone's copying something, that's fine, because it's not worth picking a battle?
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Good questions. Nice one. Anyone else second on that one? We're interested. I know we spoke about that before, Celia. Hey, so we can touch on that again. That's good. Anupam, anything from you? Any observations or things you'd like to talk about, or what's going on for you guys at the minute?
So Amo joined the Frontiers program, but right now I'm chipping in for him. At Nepal, currently we are on the process of raising funds for our second fund, NIC2, which is a 20 million euro fund. That's going on. Apart from that, we are also kind of redesigning our accelerator model of sorts and trying to venture outside of Kathmandu, the capital city of Nepal. So we're trying, our accelerator program has mostly been Kathmandu focused with companies coming from outside, but we
Hmm.
are sort of designing it to venture outside of Kathmandu to see what sort of opportunities lie beyond the capital city. That's it for now. And we're also fundraising for the accelerator program as well, talking to DFIs and other partners at the moment. I am also curious about the fact that Junaid mentioned about what really constitutes an IP in terms of scaling and replicating.
Yeah.
From my end. Thanks.
Nice. That's great. Sounds like good timing if you're just moving out of Kathmandu as well for one to watch. But it's good. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. And Celia, is there anything that's going on for you guys at the minute that you want to add to this?
I don't, not more than what we talked about last week, I don't think. We're pretty much at the same stage.
Same stuff. It's only a week on, eh? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It can be a long time or a small time. That's good. We might draw a little bit on some of that stuff then we've already talked about around the, certainly on the IP protection. Sounds like a good discussion. Okay. So let's kick off then with the customer stuff that Mariska raised. And this is where Deepak can be a good contribution as well. Deepak from Village Capital. Thank you for joining us today, Deepak, as well. And I should say in webinar 3, we'll be covering the viral framework from Village Cap. So there'll be a lot more on that next time, which is really, really useful. But anyway, that's for next time. Teaser trailer. Okay, so customer identification then, right? Is anybody else working with corporates in your accelerators and engaging them? I think, like Mariska, you were just saying around impact measurement and selling that into the corporate market as a way of, is it generating revenue? Is that what you're after in terms of that, or is there another play in terms of what you're going for in the impact measurement consultancy? Is that to cross-subsidize your accelerator work with the cohorts? You know, Mariska, just to be clearer on that. That's right. It's a cross-subsidization model.
I think it's more like what new business units for now. For what I understand by my conversation with William, it's more like an add-on, and maybe the bootcamp for social enterprises. It can help to give a new perspective as well for the corporates and how to link the corporate and social enterprises, not only in terms of giving a new perspective, but also how to tap into their supply chain in a way. Yeah.
Okay, so great. So through your bootcamp, exposing the corporates to the people coming through it. And the cohort to the corporates for all those different benefits, potential sponsorship, potential supply chain integration.
Exactly.
Yeah, magic. And so what you're looking is how growing that field of corporates. Who are you going for to bring into that? Okay, great. And did you say something earlier around impact measurement as well, offering a service to them? Is that one of the ways of engaging the corporates? Yeah. Great. Is anybody else doing that? Something similar? Do you all engage with corporates or no corporate engagement? Hands up if you're engaging corporate. Yeah. Yeah, nice. What's your play with corporates, Celia?
I think it's a bit of a hard one here. It's like we don't get heaps of. If we get sponsorship from corporates, and it tends to just be for events, they really like sponsoring events here, but then they kind of want to obviously wash it in their logo and all that kind of stuff, which is All right, but we do have some corporates that want to do some stuff with us, but it's often with like it's a bit difficult to manage because like there might be microfinance institutions or banks or things like that like they have a very obvious motive that we have a really strong network of female business owners and they want them to get business loans from them and stuff like that. So it's like I find it difficult managing that. It's like we can. Yeah, because we also, it's a bit of a tough one, but we don't really engage corporates in like formal partnerships other than like sponsors and even then very, very small sponsors at this stage.
Yeah. And which parts of the corporates do you engage with? It like, is it corporate? Is it CSR folks, or is it more?
In Cambodia, they don't have it. They don't have like it always comes from their marketing budget, which means that
you're dealing with
they only do it if it's really good marketing for them.
Yeah,
it's normally events.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? That's the hazards of the sponsorship style. It's a marketing budget, and so they want their marketing play. Yeah, pound of play. Yeah. So in Jakarta, Mariska, hopefully you can tap up the CSR side of it better. And in terms of the market for, I think in Deepak's slides there, you're looking at the sort of total addressable market for corporate CSR or versus corporate sponsorship. I guess there's two different budgets there. Is CSR big enough, do you know, as an agenda that you can get away from what Celia is describing in terms of that marketing twist? That would be one of the first things I think to check out is and really identify the CSR budgets and desks in some of those corporates versus the marketing spend on impact or it's like a greenwash, isn't it, for environmental causes and so on. Anupam or Junaid, have you got any experience working with corporates or any advice for Mariska as they're going down this route? Looking at this sort of customer group?
We at the moment are not really working with corporate groups.
Yeah, staying away, hey, keeping away from it. Absolutely. Junaid, anything to add on that?
So not really. I mean, so we have tried reaching out to the corporates, but I think, especially the stage we are on, being that early on, it doesn't. We don't have that level of traction where, like, numbers would necessarily, make sense for them to take a leap of faith. Like, for instance, we were engaging with a couple of partners, but then the challenge again is that it's not very predictable right now, and they kind of are little, like, including bigger players like AWS and a lot of like indigenous, like the expats who are living in Singapore from Sri Lanka. It's just the hardcore corporates at this point do not necessarily see that value unless we are at a certain level. So not been that level of success with that. But that doesn't mean we're not be engaging. It's just that we are not the right ticket size in a way for them.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? They all have their own preferences. Yeah. So understanding our customers as that segment of customers of those sponsors really, really key to know when we're the right size and the right fit for them. Yeah, absolutely. Deepak, is there anything you would like to add on this topic?
Yeah, I'm curious what kind of metrics for those of you who have engaged with corporates, and earlier you mentioned tracking impact metrics. So I'm just curious as to what kind of impact metrics the corporates you've spoken to typically care about.
Anybody got any feedback? Yeah, go on. Mariska, do you have a sense of this yet? In terms of the impact metrics that the corporates care about?
Well, to be honest, we haven't talked that much to the corporate about what kind of impact that matters to them. But what we sense from the corporate that we encounter too, they would like to have a kind of entrepreneurship challenge or innovation challenge in their corporate. I understand that it's kind of different from the impact measurement part. So, and it's not the real, I mean, not the direct link to the product or service that we want to define in our next levels. So I guess for now, we are still trying to understand, but maybe our hypothesis are they would like to know about the number of I mean, horizontally, they would like to know about how big is the beneficiaries that they want to create from their program or their initiatives, CSR initiatives. And the second one are maybe more in-depth or the vertical level, such as how it can link with their livelihood, and how their business can link to the program as well. Maybe kind of that's our first hypothesis.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, I think that speaks to sort of I think as Celia was saying, if the corporates are more oriented towards more sponsorship style and just getting their brand out there, then you have more of an interest in the vertical sectors or the brands of the people in the cohort, the general impact, credibility of it, rather than the specific metrics. But I think to Deepak's point, for me, having a grasp of that, if you can nail down what impact metrics might they be interested in as part of that brand alignment, that will certainly give you the ammunition to keep them bought in over time. So really that customer empathy, really understanding where is their brand going, what do they want to link to, in a quite a mercenary way in many ways, just making sure that you've got a good fit between the impact that you can create and the numbers that you are creating and those corporates. So good solid market intel hopefully is what you can build over this next period of time, and that'll help you then very much segment who it is you're going after in your market. So building one of those frameworks again, I think I can't remember if it's in these slides. I think it might be in these ones around that customer segmentation. And so you've got those different maybe vertical sectors, or some corporates have got foundations and they put all their CSR stuff through the foundation or link through that, or the CSR department or the marketing department, and then per different corporate. So I would get detailed about it and go that way and make sure that in there is impact metric as well, what matters to them too. I know that for the Social Enterprise Academy, we stayed away from corporates for many, many years. Actually, we had a couple of not great engagements with them early on, and it, as you were sort of describing, Celia, it can take you way off what you're doing, or it can rebrand your stuff too far, and actually that then loses your credibility with your main cohort customers, if you like. So you got to be really careful around the brands that you do take on, and so that's one of the first things I would say is that when dealing with the corporate piece, if that's one of your big markets, just that values alignment and making sure that their brand enhances yours or adds to yours, or is aligned in some way with a feature of what it is you want to be promoting. And again, like we were talking about last time, building those strategic partnerships in your ecosystem is one of the most important things you can do to make sure that you are really going to scale well in your space. So welcome, Salman. Good to join us. We're on two topics today. We're just finishing up talking about corporates as a market segment, and then we're about to talk about some stuff around IP and scaling and design. So welcome to it. So just to finish on that, with the Social Enterprise Academy, we made sure that when we were re-engaging with corporates more recently, that an understanding of values alignment is really, really crucial in who we're pitching to and how we engage them. Our product that we run with schools, we're moving into a couple of different territories in the UK, We've just been starting up in London, and that gave us a much clearer focus that actually just for one product, that one product is what we were taking to the corporates. And we got a lot more corporate engagement with the schools piece than we did with any other aspect of our model. So sometimes it can just be one product. But again, that in many ways, what the corporates are after is sometimes not just that exposure. Sometimes it's stuff for their staff to get engaged with. And so what we've been looking at is redesigning our internal team to make sure that people have got the capacity to really focus on a very different market, and make sure that you can serve those corporates with what they need, because sometimes it can be quite labor intensive, and so on. So I'm sure several of you have run corporate programs before, but yeah, so just being careful in the design of what you're offering, that if the corporates are taking too much of your time for not enough reward in terms of funds or what have you, then it's a potential distraction. And in scaling, you've got to be really disciplined around how you use your precious energy, and all that sort of stuff. So, okay, is that all right on the corporate sort of agenda? If anybody does want to talk about corporates, slightly conscious of time, and let's move on to the IP question. But if anybody does want to talk about corporates, then maybe connect separately off the side of the after the seminar. Before we go on to the IP question, Salman from BRAC, welcome to the seminar. Is there anything that is going on for you guys that you'd like to talk about today? We're doing kind of a group discussion sort of setup where people are contributing different experiences around different topics. But is there a topic, a burning topic, or anything from the webinar that you might have watched that you'd like to talk about, or just to generally contribute today? It's good. So generic question or just listening? Cool. Okay, joining in later. That's good. All right, grand. So without further ado, then we'll talk about the IP question, the burning one, and how we protect ourselves as we scale through our design. So I'll kick this off. So with IP, often one of the first things that people are worried about is people stealing their content. And as you said, Junaid, as well earlier on, there's often a lot of crossover. We're all drawing on other people's ideas. We're often using business planning tools or business modeling tools that have been developed by other organizations. We're just repackaging it for our cohorts in a specific kind of way. But the effort of doing that there's a lot of time goes into that. There's a lot of effort in creating those materials that are specific to those cohorts. So that effort is kind of what you're needing to protect. And if people are going to take your materials, your content, and then use it with some of your groups who maybe undercut you, that's probably a common scenario that you're trying to protect yourselves from. Is that resonating for everybody? Are those the main issues that are coming up around IP, or is there anything else that is a burning issue that people want to contribute at this point around IP? What are some of your experiences? Maybe Junaid, could you recap briefly what it is you're interested in the IP question, or where that stems from?
Sure. Sorry for the delay in unmuting.
Sure.
So yes, so the interest essentially arises from that, when we go through these programs, so even the Frontier Incubator, like I mentioned as part of this MIT bootcamp and all of that, to what degree are you, that drawing that line, that whether, subconsciously there's always that thought that maybe you are plagiarizing on something. How do you give that due credit? Where is that line? So that's one part of it. Yeah. The other part also is that, generally, if anything has more of an IP association to it, it is more sellable, to put it very crudely, in terms of when you're reaching out to anyone So if you are like, why would they go with you unless you have done something value addition to the curriculum to it? Otherwise, it just takes a couple of hours online to put something together. How do you bring your own value add to it, like having gone through it? Maybe that's one part of it. A lot of time people just like, regurgitate whatever they kind of have come across or like know about, but having experienced it, having run workshops around it is definitely a value add. But is that enough of a value add where you can claim any kind of like IP to it? Not necessarily even IP, but how do you even package that, right? That's the other challenge, that if you are like taking some methodology which already exists, but you have done it in a context which is very localized to, let's say, South Asia, right? And a lot of things will change. How do you bring that and put it together in a way where, and that definitely has value, right? But where do you draw, where is that line? How do you so that's essentially where the thought process is coming from.
Yeah, there you go. Right, so anybody got any opinions on that? Maybe Celia, and how do you feel you add value to the content, or create something unique for your groups? I know those are the same issues coming up for you.
Yeah, I think I suppose for us it's like the pretty clear value add is around the gender lens, adding that onto each activity. I think that we're getting to a point where I think as I discussed with you like recently, Sam, it's like it's definitely a risk as we have people because as we grow, we have people coming in and out of the organization too. And we train up facilitators, and that takes a really long time. And then if they leave, then they might take things with them, and they definitely take a lot of knowledge with them for sure. So I think what we're starting to realize is that we need to our brand is bigger than individuals. So we need to make sure that is more valuable, if that makes sense. Like people know She, and they know that our programs are evidence-based and effective, and that's bigger than one person who might look at that IP. But we definitely we find it difficult working with partners. Sometimes they pay us to create content for them, or they expect us to share things with them for free, and don't really understand, particularly because our clients are typically NGOs and they really don't like paying for things.
Yeah, right.
And it's something I don't have a clear. We're working it out, and trying to talk about it with Sam and talk about with people like you guys, because it's definitely something that I think we all need to be a lot clearer on.
Yeah.
Manage it, and we can't really enforce IP, but I think our value add is more our reputation, is the gender lens and the reputation, more than anything else.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Celia. Nice one. Is that resonating with anybody else? I think you just defined really clearly actually two of the major issues around it. Okay, I'll talk to a little bit of that, if that's all right. So the big two areas there are your internal facilitator network and people that you're investing time in taking your stuff and undercutting you and then going elsewhere with it. And then the other one is the clients. They're expecting things for free that are just going to take your value add and aren't going to pay you sufficiently for it. So taking that the internal dynamic is one of those ones that's quite easily solvable with the design piece. So the IP question, to an extent, and actually Bill Owlett from MIT with Disciplined Entrepreneurship talked about this quite well. Intellectual property doesn't really protect you. It just slows your competition down, and it actually takes a whole load of your time and money to try and protect. If you're going to try and protect it through patents or anything like that, there's no way you're going to get a patent on just repackaging some learning program stuff. If you've done some sort of design solution tech-wise online, you might be able to patent something there, but that's really, really tough. And actually, what are you really protecting? You're just slowing your competition down. They'll find a workaround or do something in a different way anyway. So it's a huge, great waste of our time. And I don't know about you guys, but if you're incubating cohorts, the number of those that get investment, often investors are saying, oh, where's the patentable bit? Where's the bit that, how do we protect our money and our investment? And very few organizations that even get investment have actually got a patent in place. Sometimes it can be a huge distraction, and you design in other features. So in the webinar, worth a relook and asking yourselves around those questions. The open framework is the one to really look at about how do we make sure that our internal network values the IP that they're getting, in terms of being part not only of having access to that IP, but recognizing the other bits of the scenario that they're benefiting from and how they would then cease to benefit, or it could be damaging to them if they then stole that and left reputationally or through the loss of what else they're gaining. So it's going beyond the value add of the actual materials. And so, for example, enhanced network, being part of your facilitator team, if they're gaining something routinely over time, for example, professional development, or just feeling contact with your other facilitators, being recognized as being part of that group. As she was, the great example was she, the power of the brand is what you've got, the value out of the brand there, being part of the she network of facilitators, and recognized for that, not only locally, but internationally, potentially, is a huge deal. So sometimes putting up more and more quality controls or hurdles to jump over to be seen as part of that can be part of building that facilitator group. We certainly in the Social Enterprise Academy also do a selection tool where when we're training them, they gain some good training, but we also use that as a selection moment to make sure that we've got the right people on the bus. So that's really, really crucial. But making sure that they value brand, the network as well. Some of those other processes that you're going to be doing fundraising on their behalf, basically, or you're doing the sales, they're getting gifted work, where if they were operating on their own, they'd have to go and find that work themselves. So sometimes other aspects like that can be of huge value. But understanding those internal customers and putting effort into that. And then the last part of that puzzle is contracting as well. Making sure you've got good contracts in place with the facilitators. And this can also go to the sponsors or the clients as well. That contracting, making sure that confidentiality or intellectual property is mentioned in there. And so there's some sort of clear relationship about how they are benefiting. When we first started replicating around the world, some of the early partners that we were talking to would often try and sell us their stuff and say, oh, if we've generated content, how can we sell that into the Social Enterprise Academy network? And we sort of cut that really quickly and said, nah, that's not part of the game. You're joining a collaborative network here, and actually you're going to benefit from stuff that's going to be generated by our other people in our network as well. So again, watching that, there's another value add there, that by enhancing the number of people in your network and growing that scale, you have got more people innovating potentially your content for you and growing that content over time. So it really weeds out people that are just in it for themselves or not able to contribute more to your network. So finding those, and these are the subtle things, right, in your design around what's the deal, what's the absolute detail of the deal that people get to contribute to the network that keeps you protected, if you like, and more resilient. So those are definitely some of those features that are coming up that help to protect that core offering. And I'm thinking about you, Anupam, as well, as you stretch outside of Kathmandu, whether you're working with new teams or staff and so on, and building relationships in those places. Again, that's part of extending your reach and making sure that either they're bought into you as an organization, or if you're finding new people, how much you put in place and how much you share gradually over time is really crucial, that you're giving them the basics And sometimes it's making sure they can do the nuts and bolts, that they can do that basic level first and do it well, and then they get access to a bit more, and then they get access to a bit more. So again, just protecting slightly how much they get hold of. And again, I know on the client side, to flip to that conversation there, as Celia was describing, sometimes we'll get clients that just want us to design something that they can then spread much more widely or make open source. And then that's a really big consideration, that actually, hang on a second, we're going to give a lot of this stuff away for free, or we're going to create something for you that you can then use. And that's really tricky. And that then comes down to you and selection of how much you put in. Can you then use the opportunity to put in like a teaser for your own materials and create a pipeline towards what you do, because you know that that actually you can offer a much deeper experience or greater experience to build on that initial start. So I'd say that's one element of control you've got, is by taking the contract, you can design in features that lead towards your more full programs or your deeper experiences. Because again, a lot of this sort of cohort-based stuff, there's only so much you can get from reading online resources, right? It's the power of being in the room, the power of connecting with you and your networks, the power of connecting with your investors and your setup that really adds the value. So it's in how you use the materials, not necessarily just having access to them. Don't know how many people have got old materials sitting on their shelves, or books sitting on their shelves that they're not referring to, or need to talk to other people to activate them. So hopefully there's power in the other parts of our models that we can get to. But having those design conversations with clients is certainly another area of contracting where you can also put in place time limits and so on. So look, if we're going to share something with you, you can only use it for a certain period of time, and then that's a cutoff at that point, for example. Or can you put in place like a reoccurring license as part of the deal with your clients, maybe like a subscription type model, that rather than just being a one-off piece of design what you get paid for, it's design plus a recurring retainer or subscription style, where you could be updating those materials annually, keeping them up to date and up to spec, and that gives you a client that's bought in for the long term. So little innovations like that could be ways of protecting your relationship with the client and building on an initial piece of design work and turning them into a repeat customer. Could be another way of, again, protecting the relationship, which then protects the IP and keeps it with you. And that they see there's an important part to that with you as like a brand partner, if you like, being responsible for making sure their content remains up to scratch and keeps going and keeps getting better. Is any of that landing, or any opinions? Is all of that rubbish? Votes out of 10. Any feedback or any ideas coming up for anybody who'd like to add something? My voice is getting boring. We've only got about 7 or 8 minutes as well, so this is your last chance to put something in or talk about it.
I think us, just super quickly, I think the best thing for us is just like, it resonates because it's nice to know that other organizations have like the exact same challenges, and to hear that like there is more than just IP, and the amount of work that you go into like the legalities around IP is not always necessarily the most important thing and can take you away from your work. So that resonates quite a lot, because we definitely spend a lot of energy and stress on that kind of stuff when we could be directing that elsewhere. So it's good for us to hear that.
Yeah, nice. I think that's great shit, Celia. Good, great, thank you. And good to touch base, I think, as well, and see. And I think with She, we can be really, really quite detailed in, all right, what other things that we're putting in place, and have we got that nicely, and is it working? It'll be a good test over time to see if how you've been doing things, and then if we can put some of these things in place, whether they are making a difference and people are staying with you. Absolutely right. Anupam, Junaid, either of you guys that were talking about this earlier on, any thoughts from you or reactions to any of that as options?
I did have a tangent kind of a query, so I'll hold on to it if then nothing else comes up. So Yeah, so it's not directly. It's a bit of something Celia said that was made me thinking about something. So yeah, if nothing else, I'll come to that.
All right. In that case, I will finish on this topic then by saying, do go back and rewatch those slides, and I dare you to try and do the tasks. So that open framework, it's a really good one with your teams, just thinking through what elements of ownership do facilitators get, or like we were just talking about, clients get over a piece of material. What processes do they also benefit from beyond the products or beyond the material? What is it they're benefiting from the enhanced, being part of the enhanced network, say for a period of time, and putting in that they're a part of it for the next 3 to 5 years, and they need to keep earning their place. And then the name as well, the brand, what features they benefit from that brand association as well. So being detailed about that gives you the answers for when people are coming at you, or if you're trying to design any sort of IP network. The other thing that will be in webinar 3 and would be worth watching out for is, as Junaid said, that some of the disciplined entrepreneurship stuff. For me, one of the most useful parts of that speaks to this topic is defining the core of your business. And there's a very specific definition of how you go about finding that. So we'll talk about that in the next webinar. But yeah, in terms of this, if anybody is being more detailed and can offer specifics about what they're doing, then maybe next time we'll find out more specifics too. But anyway, go on then, Junaid. In the last couple of minutes, what's the tangent that came up for you that Celia sparked?
Right. So there was, and I think this has been there in the conversation earlier as well, about going out beyond your core areas, so, from Kathmandu to outside as well, as mentioned, and generally like when you're scaling. And one of the things I have kind of in more of a South Asian context, if I were to speak, a lot of the knowledge is very personnel driven versus processes driven. So I was curious to know, how does that replication work, especially given the amount of investment that goes into training someone, and how Celia mentioned that people tend to leave as well. And I mean, there's a lot of churn when it comes to startups and the ecosystem side. So I was very curious to know, is there a way to ward off that kind of an effect of personality driven knowledge versus processes, and how successful that experience has been?
Fantastic question. Anybody got the answer, or a good answer? Or any ideas on that? I think it's really, really that's really well phrased, Junaid. Thank you very much for that. The how to protect against that churn and against all your investment of time in a network of people being lost. So several, I suppose, top tips for us. We've been growing networks all over the world, and there's nothing more frustrating than building a network of people, maybe not using them, and then they drift away or they go into other things, and you've lost them, and you feel like, oh, we put in all that effort and we haven't made it work. So some of the things that can undermine that are not having enough work for them, not having enough delivery, and so the misalignment of expectations. So really, really crucial that you have those kind of one-to-one conversations with each member of that network you're building, and that you only recruit enough people for the amount of work that you're planning on delivering. If you've got too many, that can help to boost the numbers in your network and give a buzz to it, but also you're not going to have enough for them to do. So it's very, very tricky balance. So I would say that's number one, is maybe have just a few more than you actually got work for. And so even if some of them are not being used as much, or are just observing sessions or what have you, keeping them engaged in that way, if that's the scenario, then make sure you have got other professional development moments where they all come together and get something else out of the network, or maybe have opportunities for other bits of work. So that you're having to manage, it's a community management role, right? Keeping them active and engaged and doing new things, learning new things, exercises that help them communicate with you what sort of trajectory of growth they want to be on as facilitators. What else can they learn with you whilst they're working with you? Not just a transactional coming to deliver your stuff, but offering them professional development routes, and being really, really clear on that, not just with you, but with their peers in the network, and help the network to manage it. So lots of network management techniques. How many times a year do you come together and actually share knowledge that may not just be about what it is you're doing, but more about the broader situation around impact or what have you in your area as well. So all those other aspects you can be building into how you grow that community. And so for us as well, one of the big things is staying one step ahead of that, knowing that there is going to be some churn. Hopefully you can keep good retention in your community of facilitators. But some people will leave, stuff comes up in their lives. So making sure you do have planned moments about when you're recruiting people, when do you need to do another recruitment? Is there a training that they come through as part of that recruitment? Is that recognized and well known in your area that people, oh, there'll be another recruitment in a couple of years, you just have to wait for that? Do you have a waiting list, for example? And staying aware that if you are going to lose people, and that is going to happen, being okay with that and knowing that's all right, and not having too many eggs in one basket, if you like, that kind of thing, that if you become too dependent on one or two crucial facilitators, you haven't built resilience in there. You need a growing network of people with different skills, maybe for different cohorts in different areas. And it might be a buddy system or a training system or other ways of keeping people bought in. But yes, so keeping a high retention rate does maximize your investment. And so for us, we know it takes 3 to 4 years for somebody to become really comfortable and confident as a facilitator with us, just in learning the programs as they go and getting better and better and better at it. So seeing that and painting that, managing those expectations for the long term is, again, something you can do. And so we did employ a whole member of staff to become like the quality manager, if you like, and help to manage those networks. But it is a tough job of investing time in building those networks. But again, we've taken quite an altruistic view of it, that a lot of the content isn't ours. We're bringing it together from lots of different sources, but we make sure that our facilitator network has access to all of that in the automation side, where they can access a range of materials online and help to build their programs without too much interference or taking time. And again, it's the packaging of that, the presentation of it, making it easily accessible for them, that is hopefully part of the scenario that helps them to deliver good programs really well. So that speaks to some of the processes bit that they benefit from as being part of that network. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Literally in the last few minutes, anything coming up from anything I was saying there that anybody wants to comment on in ideas about how that we can help to build these networks that protects what we're doing, or any experiences people want to share?
Sorry to interrupt, guys. I have to leave. I'm so sorry.
That's quite all right, Celia. Thank you for your contributions, and we'll
Thank
see
you so much for having me.
later.
See you next
All right.
time. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Anybody else? Mariska, have you guys talked about this as you're going to be expanding into lots of different sites after DICE, or through DICE? I know that William was looking at doing a big recruitment of potential people in different areas of Indonesia.
Well, we're currently still exploring around as well, since it's also not that easy to find local partners, and how to make it sustain, how to keep the community alive in a way, especially after this. So I think it's one of our biggest questions as well for now.
Yeah, that's good. And that question there, the local partners, that's going to come up in webinar 3 as well, how to find and identify good partners.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of that scaling, all with these sort of considerations in mind too. So you've raised a good point there at the very end. Thank you for that. Good one. We'll make sure that's in the next webinar. Sure. Anupam or Salman, anything else you want to add or question at this point?
No, that was really insightful, something to think on over the next couple of weeks. I do have to leave now, but thank you. It's really
Great. Thanks for your time very much. And yeah, do watch the last webinar and the next one. Oh, you already had watched the last one, but watch the next one. It'd be great to have you back. Really keen to talk about the one to watch scenario. So maybe see you next week. I hope.
great. Yeah.
Say hi to our mode for me as well.
Sure.
And thank you for joining, Salman. Great as well. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you all. That's us coming to the end then. If there's nothing else, or if anybody wants to sign off, then please do say anything now. Deepak, anything you want to add, just as a closing statement or as a final part of the puzzle?
No, this has been great. It's been interesting, and I look forward to the next seminar. So.
Great. Thank you, Deepak. Magic. Right, well, we're going to be recording the next webinar really shortly, and we'll have it up online for you this week. So please do tune in. Good luck with all your adventures and what you're up to. Keep it going, hey? And we'll catch you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.